The sky was dark. The clouds were heavy. Rain started to fall. At first it was soft. Then it was strong. People in the small village looked up. They closed windows. They shouted to each other, "Take your bags! Take food! The water is coming!" Tom was only 12. He stood at the door of his house. He watched the rain hit the ground. The ground was already full of water. He saw the road turn into a small river. His mother pulled his hand. "Tom, we must go. The storm is big." His father carried a bag. They started to walk down the road. Tom looked back at his house. His chest felt heavy. Inside that house was Max, his little dog. Max was small, white, and always happy. Max slept near Tom's bed every night. Max followed Tom to the fields every morning. Now Max was not here. Max was alone. Tom felt his eyes burn. He whispered, "Max is inside." The rain hit harder. The water moved faster. People shouted louder. "Run! Run! The river is coming down!" Tom's father turned to him. "Tom, keep walking. It is not safe." But Tom's steps slowed. He could not see Max. He could not hear Max. His hands shook. The storm grew louder. Tom's heart grew louder too. He thought, what if Max is scared? What if Max cries? His body wanted to run back, but his legs felt stuck. He whispered to himself, "The rain is strong, but my heart is louder." And with that thought, he looked at the road behind him, the road to his home, the road to Max. Tom stopped in the middle of the road. The rain poured on his face. He looked at his mother. He looked at his father. His lips moved, but no sound came. His mother saw his eyes. She shook her head. "Tom, no, we must go. You will get hurt." Her voice was sharp, but her hands shook. Tom's father spoke louder. "Listen, son, the dog will be fine. We must think of us. We must live first." Tom felt his heart break. Max was not just a dog. Max was his friend. Max was his brother. Max was his family. He thought of the nights when Max lay by his side. He thought of the mornings when Max ran to the fields. He thought of the way Max jumped, happy, when he came home from school. He whispered, "Max is my family." The rain almost took his words away, but his parents heard them. His mother cried. Her tears mixed with the rain. She held Tom's hand tight. "Tom, please. You are my child. You are my life. Don't go back." Tom's heart pulled in two directions. One side said, "Stay safe. Stay with your parents." The other side said, "Go. Save Max." His father grabbed his arm. "Tom, listen. The storm will grow. The water will rise. You cannot fight the mountain." Tom shook his head. His voice was small but strong. "I cannot leave him." His father froze. For a second no one spoke. Only the storm spoke. Then Tom pulled his arm free. He turned around. His feet hit the muddy road. He began to run back. His mother screamed his name. His father shouted after him. But Tom did not stop. He only thought of Max. He only saw Max's eyes in his mind. The rain hit harder. The road was darker. But inside Tom, a fire burned bright. Sometimes love is louder than fear, he told himself. And he ran into the storm. Tom ran back to the village. The rain pushed him down. The wind slapped his face. The road was not a road now. It was a brown river of mud. He slipped. His knees hit the ground. Mud covered his hands. Cold water filled his shoes. He stood up and kept running. He shouted, "Max! Max!" But the storm ate his voice. He could not hear anything, only the roar of water. Tom's chest hurt. His breath was heavy. His legs shook. But in his head, he saw Max's eyes. He whispered, "Wait for me. I am coming." A tree fell close to him. The ground shook. Water splashed high. For a moment Tom froze. Fear bit his heart. He thought, maybe I will die here. But then far away he heard it. A sound. A sharp sound. It was a bark. It was Max. Tom's eyes filled with tears. He shouted, "Max! Hold on!" His voice broke, but his legs moved fast. He jumped over stones. He pushed through water. He fell again, but he rose. The village was near now. He saw the roofs under the rain. He saw water running down the street like a wild river. But above all, he heard Max again. Bark after bark, weak but clear. Tom smiled through the rain. His lips shook, but he whispered, "Hope is a small light in a dark storm." He ran faster. He knew Max was alive. He knew Max was waiting. And he swore with all his heart, "I will not stop. I will not let go." Tom reached his street. The street was gone. It was a river now. Water rushed between the houses. Wood, branches, and stones floated past. He saw his home. The door was half open. Water poured inside. The windows shook. "Max!" Tom shouted. His voice cracked. No answer, only the sound of rain. He pushed through the water. The current pulled at his legs. It tried to take him away, but Tom held onto the wall. Step by step he moved forward. He reached the door. He pushed it wide. Cold water rushed out. Inside, the floor was covered. Chairs floated. A table leaned against the wall. In the corner he saw a small shape. White fur. Wet. Shaking. Two dark eyes looking at him. "Max!" Tom cried. The dog barked once. Then it whined. Its body trembled. Tom ran to him. He fell to his knees in the water. He wrapped his arms around Max. The dog pressed into his chest. Tom whispered, "I am here. You are safe now." The house groaned. Wood cracked. The roof leaked. The water rose higher. Tom stood up. He held Max close. The dog was light, but Tom's arms felt weak. Still, he pressed forward. The door was blocked by a chair. He kicked it away. He pushed through the water. The current fought him, but he did not stop. Rain hit his face. Wind pulled at his shirt. But he held Max tighter. He spoke through his teeth. "I was weak, but love made me strong." He stumbled out of the house. The street was still a river, but now he had Max in his arms, and he knew he could face the storm. Tom stepped back onto the road. The water pulled at his feet, but he held Max close. He whispered, "Hold on, boy. We will make it." The storm roared. The mountain groaned. But Tom kept moving, step by step, breath by breath. Max licked his chin. The dog was wet, cold, and weak, but his eyes were alive. They gave Tom strength. At last, Tom saw people ahead. He saw his mother. She stood in the rain, her face pale. She shouted, "Tom!" Her voice broke like glass. Tom's father ran forward. He grabbed Tom's arm. He pulled him close. Then he saw Max in Tom's arms. For a moment he was silent. Tears filled his eyes. He said, "You are crazy, but you are brave." Tom's mother held his face. Her hands shook. Her lips pressed to his wet hair. "You came back. You are safe." Max barked weakly. He wagged his tail. He licked Tom's hand. Everyone laughed and cried at the same time. The storm began to calm. The rain slowed. The clouds opened just a little. A line of light touched the mountain. It was thin, but it was real. Tom looked at Max. Max looked back at him. For Tom, the world was heavy, but at that moment, his heart was light. His father spoke again. He put his hand on Tom's shoulder. "You saved him," he said. Then softer he added, "But maybe he also saved you." Tom closed his eyes. He held Max tighter. He felt warm, even in the cold rain. He whispered, "Love is not only what we give, it is also what we receive." And as the storm passed, the boy, the dog, and the family stood together in the new light.